All right, I've got 6:30 and I think everyone's here. So go ahead and call to order the meeting April 1st of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we get a roll call, please?
Ahern.
Here.
Bathke.
Here.
Janeezer.
Here.
Heisler.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Willer. Yachty.
Here. Okay. First up is approval of the agenda. Everything looks okay. We'll take a motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
And a second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Great. All right, moving on to item number 3, public comment on any topic not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment tonight? Okay, great. Moving on to item number 4, preliminary site plan. We'll start with the staff presentation.
Okay, this is a request for preliminary site plan approval. This is a 133-unit independent living facility, and memory care facility and related infrastructure on 9.18 acres. Property is located on the north side of West Forever Green Road, approximately 515 feet east of South Kansas Avenue. This should be pretty familiar to you. We've gone through the rezoning, and so this is the follow-up for the preliminary site plan. Just probably need to put an asterisk after this, but we need to get to final reading for these to formally be approved. But I think we're fine to move forward as if zoning would be approved, because we'll wait for the preliminary site plan to be at the final reading for council. So it gets approved first. So as recommended to this and in front of City Council, property RM21, which is a multi-unit residence district at 21 units to the acre. And future land use map designation is urban high intensity, so that zoning is consistent with that land use. Just preliminary site plan we've been working on for a month, a little over a month now, but shows generally everything that you've seen before. Just a 2- and 3-story building, a very large building, very prominent building. They've been pretty good to work with and gave us a little bit higher masonry requirements on that east, south, and west facade. It's going to be a pretty prominent building, so we felt that that was pretty important. And just here's some renderings that I think you've seen before. Just some related subdivision infrastructure improvements that the developer that owns the land around it will be working on. Julia Drive would be proposed to be extended all the way south to Forever Green Road. That'd be a right-in, right-out. We'll achieve that by having the developer put a median within Forever Green Road. And then the east-west road to get to Kansas would be Cora, and that was part of the original subdivision plan. So just because access is limited to right-in, right-out on Forever Green Road, still be able to make left turns if they go to Cora. So pretty straightforward. The preliminary site plan achieves consistency with approval standards, and staff recommends that you accept that listed finding and forward the request to City Council with a recommendation for approval. And just, I've said this many times, but the applicants have been really great to work with, and I think responded to the feedback we had, responded well, and just wanted to make sure that this fit well within our community. So we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Do we have an applicant presentation?
I know they're attending virtually.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, good evening. Nick Dwyer with Dover Development is also on here. And then myself, Caitlin Wolf, and Darren Ammon are with Bartlett and West. We're the engineers representing this project. I think staff really, covered this well, and you guys have heard this at the rezoning presentation before, but we've worked with staff closely to satisfy all of their comments to this point, and Dover builds a really high quality product, and they're happy and proud of their buildings and provide robust landscaping on all of their projects to ensure that they're a nice look to all of the communities. And we all know that memory care and assisted living is a need for the community, so we hope that this, will move forward, and we're all on the line if you guys have any questions.
Great, thank you. We'll move to any public comments. Okay, any questions or comments from the commission? We talked about this last time, so. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll look for a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission accept the listed finding and forward the preliminary site plan to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Great, do we have a second?
I'll second.
And can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ahern,
Aye.
Yachty,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Janizer.
Aye.
Okay, great. Moving on to item number 5, which is a zoning map amendment. We'll start with the staff presentation.
All right, this is going to be a long intro, so bear with me. So this is a rezoning request from MLDC Inc. To rezone from RS7 PAD, which is single unit residence district planned area development, and a portion is zoned ID interim development, to RS4, which is single unit resident, RS9 single unit resident, and RD10 2 unit resident. Property is located on the west terminus of Chipman and the south terminus of Mayor Street. So on the left is the zoning map, shows the RS7 portion on the right or the east, and the ID interim development portion is on the left or the west side. And the future land use map designation is urban medium intensity. So it by comprehensive plan allows densities from ranges from 7 to 14 units to the acre. On the left-hand side is a proposed concept plan that we asked for. This isn't binding, but it generally, we have confidence if approved, it would be developed like this just because their zoning boundaries kind of adhere to this layout. The I guess Cora, as you would call it, is the RD10. The purple would be the RS9, and then the green area, which would be a detention pond, would be RS4. And so that has been what has submitted. On the right-hand side is the concept plan associated with the RS7 district, and the RS7 is the part shown on the right, which is in the green. And then the part 3, which was an additional phase, hadn't been zoned yet. But I did kind of a side-by-side comparison, at least with this diagram, of what they anticipated to achieve with their developments. And as proposed, it was 59 units. And then previously, if it were built in this manner, it would be 54 units. So it's pretty close. And they do show on the right-hand side a road extending down to Forever Green Road, which we'll talk about in a second. But just to give you a comparison of previous to proposed. And we did have a virtual Good Neighbor meeting on February 7th. A couple of people did attend that meeting. We've had a number of conversations with folks outside of that meeting and within. We do have a fair number of complaints, or I should say objections, my apologies. So I've listed those addresses up there. I know the applicant, we had talked and made an attempt to amend the request. So the request that went forward at the Good Neighbor meeting is different than what you're seeing now. And those were to attempt to address some of the comments related to those concerns. So I reached out to those folks that had provided objections and said, hey, this is the new request. You have any comments? You can withdraw your objection. You can continue to object. Do whatever you want. So I've included those in the amended packet. So there still are objections related to the amended request, and those are contained within the packet. I just kind of want to go through a couple of things in the area. So on the left-hand side is a conceptual street network that staff generated. They don't anticipate it'll be exactly like this, but just to give you a general idea of how things line up. The north-south road that is in green would be Alexander Way. The east-west road that connects to Jones to Kansas is Remley. And then the white are the local streets that would kind of fill in that development. Picture on the right is actually right-of-way that was dedicated for a future road. There's a number of reasons we don't think that road is necessary. Number one, you can see the two driveways, especially the property owner to the east, there'd be a driveway right next to that road. We think that would be problematic. And then also the driveway entrance over at Keystone, and then you kind of have an offset situation. Generally speaking, we are trying to limit the number of access points on Forever Green Road. So we just felt like if there was another option to design the subdivision so it didn't have that access, we would be open to that. And they responded to that. And so generally speaking, at least from a design standpoint with street networks, we were okay with the development and deleting this access to Forever Green Road. Stormwater drainage is always a topic of discussion throughout these, and it's difficult at the early process of zoning because, stormwater detention and your consistency with our stormwater ordinance is basically a design requirement that we will review. So, but it's a common concern. I get it. It's a valid concern. On the left, I've shown a picture of just generally speaking how the drainage works in the area. So those blue areas show how that water comes down and drains. On the right is a sheet from the subdivision construction plans for the subdivision to the north. In the area just south of those two lots, and I pointed where the arrow is, that was a temporary drainage feature. And I know I've talked to some property owners in that area that thought, wait a minute, what's happening here? You can't put houses there. This is a stormwater feature. This was always designed to be a temporary feature until this area was developed. So I just want to let you know about that. When we look at approval standards in the code, the two big ones are compatibility for zoning and consistency with the comprehensive plan. We think the applicant, as requested, it meets the consistency with the comprehensive plan. The zoning's requested, the RD10, the RS9, and the RS4 all achieve consistency with the urban medium intensity land use. And then the other big criteria is zoning compatibility. And I think that's where we felt we are of the opinion that I think a different zoning instead of that RS9 at the southeast corner, we feel that RS6 in that location would be better for compatibility. You do have larger lot RS4 to the south. You've got one larger lot to the east, which is RS4. And then north of that purple, you do have zoning for duplex, the RD10. So we think that the area that's in purple would be better if it was RS6. We think it would be better more compatible, I should say, with those surrounding property owners. And that is our recommendation, and I'll talk about that in a second. So our recommendation, and again, it's different from the applicant's request. So we are recommending that the zoning be changed. And again, the only difference is we would recommend that area that's RS9 in the southeast portion be changed to RS6. And so we think with that change, we believe, it's our opinion, that with that change, then it achieves consistency with approval standards. Certainly, you can disagree with me and my feelings won't be hurt, trust me. You could go forward with the applicant's request. You could recommend as staff does, or certainly you could recommend denial. So you have those three options. But that's just where staff has come in. I think there's been a lot of input from surrounding neighbors, and we agree with it. I think, I think I've heard some that say, well, we want that entire east side to be single family. And I think what staff is proposing is a pretty good balance. I think that achieves consistency with surrounding zonings and some of those concerns. So that is our recommendation, and thank you.
Okay. Do we have an applicant presentation?
Good evening. I'm Kevin Digman with MLCD. Again, I think Russ did a good job of talking it through. One thing I'd point out, Russ, do you have the last slide? You can pull up by chance?
Which one?
That's like the very last one in your packet of the proposed development.
Isn't it on the left there?
No, it's the next one, maybe what was in the packet.
Whoop.
Keep going. A little further. Or do you not
I think that's it.
Read this last exhibit. of what we brought to the good neighbor
Previous,
meeting to what?
I did not, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Even though this was in the packet, you don't have it with you? Because this is where I got this from.
Yeah. No, well, this is a presentation. I could try and,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I could just
but
kind
they
of
have
show
it.
you.
Yeah, we have.
We have it.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out the picture on the left here depicts what we originally, when we met with the city, we kind of worked out. We presented at the Good Neighbor meeting. Okay. And then the feedback we got was, some of the neighbors to the south were a little concerned about it being too close, having lots back up. Then we revised it to the right-hand plan where you can kind of see now, with the detention area and the RS4 zoning, I think there's some lines here that dictate how far the distance is from the existing homeowners. Most of them are over 300 feet, which is a football field. We know that. So even more than that. So we kind of tried to accommodate that. We took the RS9 around the corner to try to have the satisfaction of that. And then up top, the north, there was 2 other single families, which we put the not RS9 lots in there. And we understand they're little small lots, right? But I don't know, in today's world, everybody tries to find some affordable housing. Housing prices have gone through the roof. Interest rates are expensive. I've got copies of houses. We built some of these up at Saddleback. I don't know if if you go up there to golf, we have a development up there. We have some 40-foot wide homes there that fit on these lots and are very attractive and are still priced in the 500,000s, right? So I think we feel like it's still an appropriate single-family home to put there because it is a single family. It is, and there's still 500,000. So I think in today's world, with how much stuff costs, you're trying to find an affordable process that works for these people. And I understand. I mean, nobody's been in my backyard since I've lived here. I don't want anybody in my backyard, right? That's the whole concept you have, right? So I just feel like we've, from the first meeting when we worked with the city, this is what we had asked for. We could do the whole process on the left, got some pushback, tried to work with the people and the neighbors to accomplish that. And I think we've done this goal with the RS9. That being said, I think if everybody's willing to go along with it, we would probably, go along with the city's recommendation to go to the RS6 for that south piece. But that's where that's as far as we'd want to go on that. So, and then we have our engineer here if anybody has any engineering questions for him. So, any other questions for me?
Can we go? But you're comfortable with the RS6 in that?
Yeah, we'll lose a few lots and stuff, but I guess if it helps make the project go through, we're not going to continue to fight it.
Understood.
Over that, so.
I guess that was my question, because a couple years back, maybe it's been 2 now, I thought we had developers come back and have to ask for lot size adjustments because cost of goods had increased and.
Yeah, we have. But, the way we look at it is like, the request has pretty much changed. And RS7 is a smaller lot size. But the request has changed to RD10, which I think is that affordable product. And so the majority of this development will be the RD10. And we're supportive of that. We think it's compatible.
Just a quick point of order, folks. We're right now, we're at the applicant presentation portion of the agenda. And then after Mr. Digman, hi Kevin, is done speaking, and then we'll have a portion for public comments. And then you guys will have an opportunity to bring him up and ask questions of him and of staff, if that's okay, if we can keep us in order, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Thank you.
So anything else for me right now?
We may come back to you here.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, we'll move to public comment. Yep, go ahead. If you want to introduce yourself, please. Yep.
My name is David Smigel. We're 1835 Carroll Court, which is the RS4 to the east of the proposed RS9. So my mother-in-law, Carolyn, she is the one who sold the property originally. And so I think the original plan or the original conversations was that the majority of this would be single family, right? And so understanding that things change and there's adjustments with economics and what's going on with housing sales and the cost of things, an RS9 is I've not seen that really hardly anywhere else. And if you take a look to the north of the property, it's continued RS6, so I support that. But to me, there should be more of this. The more of a percentage of this should be RS6, not just this little block here. So you're trying to come up with a mixed use of, more affordable, but the RD10 are still really expensive. So I'm not sure that it makes that much of a difference in price when you're looking at RS6 versus the RD10, because I did a comparison, there wasn't much difference anyways. But to have property values can be adjusted somewhat too. If you have too much mixed housing, you have this RD10, the majority of it. So what would make more sense if it was more of a different percentage of distribution of RS6 to this RD10. So that was that was the original idea of this when it was sold. Now, I guess I understand it changes, so I'm not trying to be unreasonable. They're making whatever profit they need to make. And Kevin gave me a call, and it was a good conversation. He's kind of explaining where his position is. But in this scenario, I agree with what you're saying, Ryan. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But I think it needs to be a bigger percentage of this should be RS6. That would go more in line with what's around it. I mean, look at the RS6. RS6 is above it, right? That's directly north. It's to the left, and then you're throwing this RS9. So what I'm asking is that we take a look at what makes sense to be a better percentage of this mix. And I have not seen RS9 really hardly anywhere else. When I was trying to look it up, and working with Julia and different people that they're educated on what we do in the city. I'm not even seeing very many of these out there. So I just want to make that point that we need to make this somewhat relatable to what's around it. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to questions and comments from the commission.
Just wanted to address the other areas that are RS9. It's not very common. We're seeing it more due to those costs. We have it in the preserve over by Centennial Park, and then over in Solomon's Landing. That's the newer development. That's just west of the new Jones Boulevard extension. There's actually a fairly large area that's RS9, but it had been in the code for quite some time. And then it was just really after COVID and the interest rates rose as we started to see that request more. But rightfully so, not a lot of it in the city.
I'm trying to find in the packet, what's the lot size for RS6 again? Because I have 4 and 10 right in front of me, RS4 and RS9. What's the lot size for RS6?
I think that does sound right, yeah.
Because RS4 is 10,000.
Give me
In the packet, anyway.
1 second, I'll look.
RS9, we have 4,500.
Right.
RD10, 4,500. I'm just trying to compare in my head, make sure I understand.
Some Jeopardy music on would be helpful.
Right?
Page 26.
And then we just need, what's RS6? Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't find it in the packet.
RS4 is 10,000 square feet lot area. RS6 is 7,000 square feet. And then RS9 is 4,500.
RS4 has a minimum frontage of 40 feet. RS6 and 9 have a minimum frontage of 35.
Okay.
Lot width.
When you're talking roughly 6 units per acre as opposed to 4, you're not really going to get much more than that. Obviously, acres, 43,560 square feet. So it's, it makes a difference on the amount of product that you can put on a site, and it adds up.
Have you talked to realtors at all to see what the demand is for?
Well, no, and I look to our approval standards, right? We've got 5 approval standards, and we again, the top 2 are the compatibility with zoning and consistency with the comprehensive plan, and then we have a couple of other minor ones, but those are the 2 big ones. And so, when people come in, that's what we use to judge these. I think the market will dictate some things, and we've got to look to these tools of the comprehensive plan and what the zoning map is adjacent to judge these requests. And if Hodge came in and said, well, the market's dictating that we have 21 units of the acre multifamily here, it's just like, I'm sorry, this just isn't the right location. So you're just trying to balance those things of consistency and compatibility to try and get something to fit in here.
When I reviewed the packet, would you agree the assessment of the remaining objections are similar to what we just heard, but a lot about they want the larger lots, the lower density?
Yeah, I think so.
That's the maintained
I think,
objection.
You've got the big area that the RS4 in the corner, that stormwater detention pond, that area was increased. We talked to them. It was like, well, okay, in my mind, what if that, well, we realized we didn't need a pond that big. Well, how about we rezone it? You rezone it to RS4, and then that way there's assurances to, and again, achieves easy compatibility with the property to the south. The RS9, I agreed with them, the neighbors, and I think where the difference is the mix. So to say, well, we want a more of this property to be RS6, and that's valid. That's a legitimate comment. I just thought, where the lines line up, you've got to the east of what is currently RD10 is RD10, and then to the east of what is currently RS9, what we're advocating for RS6 is RS4. And so it was, we felt, and even there's a little bit to the south, some RD10 to the east. So we felt it was a good compromise, I guess.
Well, that's exactly why I was looking at this, both what I wanted to make sure that I understood the current objections, even after the good neighbor meeting, and to understand our authority, right? It's not to dictate to the market what can be there. It's what are our approval authority. And because the reason I asked is I've driven that corner a ton, and I know that RD10 right there in the corner, those duplexes, you see the backside from Jones Boulevard. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, they could have asked for all of that RD10 or to say what's consistent when you have a couple of mixes there already. Yeah. So I was looking at the idea of it started at RS9. I already saw that.
Yeah,
and I think RS6 is a good compromise.
Yeah, and I think that was some of the give and take with the original application. It was, I'm sure, and I think the original conversations were, hey, we'd love for this area to be all RD10, and it was like, that I think there's a compatibility issue, and to their credit, they adjusted and are trying to work with neighbors, and we just think it could just go a little bit further.
Madam Chair, if I may. Mm-hmm. The question about authority, I just wanted to address that really quickly.
Yes,
I mean, this is fundamentally an advisory board, right? And so you are able to advise or make a recommendation of anything you want. Prefer that you have some sort of findings of fact so that they have a rational basis or some sort of footing in reality. But you are not bound by anything anyone here has said as far as what recommendation the board that ultimately makes it or the commission makes it. So that's entirely up to you. Okay.
Fair.
And just to add, the RS7, which is all on that east boundary, the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. So they're like I said, RS7 is a little bit one of our smaller. I think this might be the only area in the city that we have it, actually.
Russ or Mr. Digby, double check my math for me here, but we're talking about roughly 16 and a half acres. Is that where we're at for the total size of the development? Am I adding that up correctly?
Let's see here.
Is that in the original request, wasn't it?
Well, I'm adding it up from the from the memorandum,
2.1610.
and there may be a,
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like 16.6.
Is that right?
If your packet is correct.
Yep.
and even if we're
16.6, yep.
okay, even if we're just close, I completely understand the notion of compatibility, especially, homes that have been here for a long time. It's not an easy adjustment, no matter where we're at in the city, with the amount of development that we've had in the last, however many years. The aesthetics and kind of getting our minds wrapped around these kinds of changes are not easy. That said, I am of the mind, and if Mr. Digman's group is amenable to the RS6, I think that's a good, middle ground. But with the detention area that they've got here, and I don't have exact measurements, but the detention area that they've added to this development, this is not a big, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big parcel of ground. And to be able to provide enough units to make the development economically feasible, this thing, it becomes pretty difficult. And I would be, unless there's a covenant or a contractual agreement that would prevent.
I mean, my understanding is that this basin serves the development to the north and to the east.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is that because that was not in the original proposal though, right? The detention basin of this size.
It's a little bigger than what the original concept showed.
Okay. That buffer, I guess, is what I'm, if they've increased the size of that, or giving up some units, my thought is if the code doesn't prevent it, there aren't covenants in place on the property that prevent it, and there was nothing in the contract that prevented it, in my mind, the property owner should be able to develop it as long as it's within code, right? If the RS9 is not consistent and the RS6 is agreeable, I think this, in my mind, this works if everybody's in agreement. But again, that said, they can ask for RS9 or even RD10, and I don't know that we're in a position to prevent them from doing that. So, I guess my next question would be then too, if the recommendation that's in here is where staff wants it to be, correct? So it's worded that way. And I think if that, like I said, if that's amenable to the, if the developers are in agreement and it's something that will help satisfy the neighbors, then I'm all for it. But in my mind, there's going to be demand, and I don't think they're going to have, who knows what's going to happen 6, 12, 18 months from now. But the way the market sits right now, if I'm in their shoes and I'm going to build new residential units, this is probably what I'm trying to do too. And I think that's what the market is asking for right now. That may all change. I mean, just like the preserve had to make some changes, things may shift the other direction where they say, you know what, maybe we're not going to sell a whole bunch of duplexes here, 24 months from now. Maybe things will shift back and the, demand will be a little bit different. But at this point, that's kind of where I'm at. And I think, trying to wrap our heads around this and make everybody as happy as possible. I think Russ has made a good recommendation. And like I said, if everybody's in agreement, that's where I'm at.
I think it's as close as we're going to get. I like that the developer's given a little listen to the landowners. I'm not sure. In a perfect world, we'd all like large lot sizes. I know I would like it even better, but I agree with you. I don't have any further questions or discussion.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, do we have a motion?
I'm happy to motion. I want to make sure this is a motion for the RS6 recommendation. So I move the Planning Commission accept the listed findings that includes the staff recommendation of the RS6 noted.
Thank you for that.
And forward the zoning map amendment to the City Council with the recommendation of approval.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Ward,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Janezer,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Yadi.
Aye. Okay, motion passed.
Appreciate that specificity. That is helpful to make sure we get it right. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is a zoning code ordinance. We'll start with the staff presentation.
Okay, so this is just a small edit to the zoning code. What I'm finding is, the medium intensity zoning district allows for 7 to 14 units to the acre, and the highest multifamily zoning we have is RM12. And so what happens is if you're 12.01 units to the acre, I say, well, you've got to go to the RM21, which is sometimes a problem, right? Because if you're not in the high intensity district in the comp plan, you're not consistent. It just adds another density for multifamily. I think that helps stay within and allows for different, a lot of times we see smaller apartments or townhouses in RM12, and I think RM14 would just give you a little bit more flexibility. So it's just a small change, but I think it'll certainly help me tremendously because it doesn't flip you into that higher district. We did have a finding that it achieved consistency with approval standards for text amendments, and we recommend that you forward the ordinance amendment to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Great. Any public comment? Okay, any questions or comments from the commission?
Makes perfect sense to me.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that the Planning Commission accept the listed finding and forward the ordinance amendment to City Council with a recommendation for approval.
And a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ward,
Aye.
Yadi,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Janezer,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Moving on to item number 7, which is the urban renewal area amendment. We'll start with a staff presentation.
Okay, we get to change it up here, different Ryan, speaking on this topic. For those of you that have been on here a while, you're familiar with urban renewal plans, and when cities look to spend TIF dollars or tax increment financing dollars, they have to update their urban renewal plan. So we've done this previously on, for example, Centennial Park. We updated our plan to include that new facility in there, and we're able to borrow money to help pay for that project. We've also done it, and what we'll talk about tonight briefly is for economic development projects. So you might remember, for those of you that have been on for a while, Jason, and I'm looking at you, you've been on for a long time. Diamond Dreams. We did a small development agreement for Diamond Dreams. We did one for Spotix a few years ago. You'll actually probably see one, maybe even 2 more of these come in front of you, hopefully within the next few months. In this particular case, the project at hand is significant, very large project entitled the Urban Central District. And there's a group of developers that are in the process of acquiring 20 plus acres in the heart of North Liberty. And if you, I suspect you saw the map in your packet, but this would include the BCI project, or the BCI property right on Ranshaw Way. Also the one just to the north of that, that's a Morton type building. And then another 10 acres or so behind that to the east, that would include the old concrete plant. Moxie Solar used to be located back there, some older warehouse type facilities. And the city is working with the developer to reinvest in this district, and we would create about 70,000 square feet of commercial space fronting Ranshaw Way, and then the idea would be for 350 or more residential units on that backside or on that east side. And really trying to create an urban, walkable district that we think could be pretty unique and pretty exciting for the community. The challenge with this property, it's owned by, I think, 9 different owners. It's 13 different parcels, I believe. And so trying to get everyone together on this has been a feat, although the development group has done a nice job with that. The other challenge is just the condition of the property, not just talking about the buildings themselves, but if you, when you look at that property, part of it's in a floodplain, it sits very low, a lot of fill is going to have to be brought in. There's $600,000 or more worth of storm sewer pipe that's going to be needed. I mean, it's going to be a monster of a project, and to make it happen, they need some city assistance. And so that's what we're proposing. It'd be potentially a $20 million investment on the city's end. But to do that, we have to create an urban renewal area, eventually a TIF district. And the urban renewal area process includes planning and zoning approval. It also has several other requirements. Tracy and I will be meeting with the school district and the county later this week. That's part of the process to explain this project to them. So big project will reshape that section of the community. And we are recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the City Council of this urban renewal plan update. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if you had any.
Okay. Any public comment? All right. Questions and comments?
So this is a big step in making that Cherry Street corridor, right? From here down to,
Yes.
and that's been the long-term comprehensive plan goal idea. And this is just the official steps, starting the financing and everything.
Yeah, so, you're right, and obviously
We're sitting in one of the first facilities that is part of that.
Started on this side with the redevelopment of Dubuque Street and the realignment of Dubuque Street and the police station and now City Hall and now working on the west end with some private development. We've got a lot of momentum on this stretch now and hopefully more to come.
And I tell people, like, what's a planner do? And I was like, we sometimes we're working on these projects for years before even we talk about it. And this is one of those that we've been talking about it for years, and not just conceptually. We've been talking with the developer for years before it really started to come together. It's amazing that it came together.
When I bought my house in North Liberty 12 years ago, I thought that's a weird place for a lumber yard. Because, at one time it wasn't in the middle of everything. I'm sure, way before I got here, but a lot of the landowners probably remember that. So I also noticed they're tearing down the trees there on that lot today. And it just, this time of year, it's even more stark about how, I think you use the word blight in some of those areas, but.
Yeah, I think what always jumps out to me, I like to ride my bike down Cherry to get to that trail. And, we've got this area is so nice and well paved and nice to ride on. That section in between here and getting to the trail is just, I'd love to see it get brought up to date.
Finally get sidewalks and trails and,
Yeah.
all along. That's just sorely needed for sure.
I'm a frequent user of the rec center that's right there. We got the food pantry going in at the north end of that trail, just another little bit north. I don't know. I just think this is fantastic. I don't like all the zeros, but apparently that's what it takes. So if this is the initial step. I also liked in the packet the amount of debt service the city was having, and we were talking percentages in there. Formerly a Coralville resident. I am formerly a Coralville resident, and Coralville planning and zoning, that always was a big concern for me. that a city gets too overextended or gets too close to their limit. And it sounds like we'd still be very comfortable.
Yeah, we are. I think we're sitting at about 40, I can't remember what I said in here, somewhere around 40%.
And you don't want to go over like 80 or 85, right?
Yeah, and that gets harder to do when you're a smaller community, obviously. We are comfortable, even with this project. We'd probably ceiling at about 65% and then scale down from there. So from that standpoint, yeah, it's certainly not out of line. But it's also, this isn't a project we would do every
You don't
year
have
either.
10 more just like this in line behind it.
Yeah, this is really a once in a career project.
I also am getting fairly familiar with some of these developers, the names on the team and stuff. Just south of 240th, where I'm at, the Pizza Ranch, that's some of the same folks in that area. And so really liking what I'm seeing they're doing for the town.
Yeah, it's nice that this is local development.
So when I moved here 8 years ago, we came from the Chicago suburbs, and I lived in several throughout my life, Chicago suburbs that had beautiful towns, and everything's close together and you can walk everywhere. And when we moved here, I had been here, I don't know, a couple of years, and I wrote a letter to the village and said that I thought it would be wonderful if it could be all tied together someday. Yeah. And I see that happening. It's definitely happening.
Yeah, certainly you need rooftops to create demand for services and those types of things that a walkable area needs. So this is one huge component of it.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different things happening, but they're all starting, they work together and they're coming together.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Do you guys have any more questions? You good?
Good.
Is it just a matter of,
The,
I know I'm trying to find the recommendation. Is there one?
No
that's
recommended.
the one with the motion.
Just like jazz, just do your
There's
best.
no recommended in there.
When you don't spoon feed us? Oh, my goodness.
We're asking for a recommendation of approval to the city council for the urban renewal plan.
A motion to make a recommendation for approval to the city council. I think I threw every word in there.
And
got it.
do we have a second of that motion?
I'll second.
Great. And can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yachty,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Janeezer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Heisler.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to item number 8, approval of the previous minutes. We don't have any updates for that. We'll look for a motion to approve
I'll move to approve the previous minutes.
and a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Moving on to item number 9, old business.
I'll just, if I can, just old business and new business together. I mean, we had two good neighbor meetings for the Weno property for Watts development. It's like 153 acres, 155 acres on both sides of Dubuque Street. So that's talk about a small one. This is a big one. So we wanted to try and really get community outreach out there. So we did one in person, very well attended. I think we had 30, 35 people. It was like almost standing room only in that meeting room over there. And then we did a virtual meeting. So we managed to reach, I think, a lot of good people. Got a lot of good feedback. I think that they made a few tweaks to the plan to respond to those. Planning to come to you in May. But I'm very pleased with the process so far. Reached out to the developer. We think with the number of units, we're looking for some type of traffic impact study. We think the development is fine and Dubuque Street is adequate, but there could be some, turn lanes and things like that that are needed. So we anticipate bringing that to you in May, so that'll be a fun one.
Anything else?
Is
Just
that
a-
contiguous to another development of theirs already?
No, it's next to Broadmoor on the west, and then Greenbelt, and so no, this is newer. So, and I was just talking to Ryan today about just we got some really big projects going on right now, and that's just it's really fun and challenging.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Any questions? No? All right. So that was old business and new business. So if there's nothing further, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned.